we're going to explore what makes a good implementation timeline, who should be involved in creating it, and how to avoid common pitfalls that can leave your project stranded halfway up the mountain. Whether you're a city manager, a county IT director, or a state-level project lead, this information is critical for your ERP success. So what is an implementation timeline? Welcome everyone, I'm Megan Seaton from Avero Advisors, and today we're embarking on a journey through the world of ERP implementation timelines. One of the most critical points to understand is that the timeline for your ERP implementation should be determined by your organization and not dictated by the vendor. This is vital because while vendors may promise quick implementations to win your business, they often overlook the unique complexities and needs of your agency. Just as you wouldn't embark on an expedition to climb Mount Everest without a carefully crafted plan tailored to your team's capabilities and conditions, you shouldn't start an ERP project without a realistic timeline that reflects your specific challenges and goals. Let's start with the basics. An implementation timeline is more than just a schedule. It's the map for your entire ERP journey. Think of it as your expedition plan for climbing Everest. A well-crafted implementation timeline should include clear project phases, like base camps on your climb, key milestones and deliverables, reaching certain altitudes, resource allocation for each phase, who's carrying what gear, dependencies between different tasks and phases. You can't reach Camp 2 before setting up for Camp 1. Buffer time for unexpected challenges, such as weather delays, for instance. Just as you wouldn't attempt Everest without a detailed expedition plan, you shouldn't embark on an ERP implementation without a robust timeline. So let's talk about realistic versus unrealistic timelines. One of the biggest pitfalls in ERP implementations are unrealistic timelines. I've seen countless projects go off the rails because of overly optimistic scheduling. It's like trying to sprint up Everest in running shoes. Realistic timelines. A realistic timeline is like a well-planned Everest expedition. It takes into account the terrain, like your current systems, the capabilities of your team, which are your organization's resources, and allows for adaptation and potential setbacks, like testing and training phases. Some characteristics of a realistic timeline include a thorough assessment of organizational needs and capabilities, adequate time allocated for each implementation phase, buffer time built in for unexpected challenges, consideration of resource availability and potential constraints. For example, a mid-sized city implementing a full ERP suite might realistically plan for an 18 to 24 month timeline, broken down as follows. 3 to 4 months for planning and discovery, which is like base camp preparation. 4 to 6 months for design and configuration, which is like planning your route. 2 to 3 months for data migration, which is like packing your gear. 3 to 4 months for testing, practicing the climbs. 2 to 3 months for training, which is fitness preparation. 1 month for go-live preparation, which are like the final checks before the summit push. 2 to 3 months for go-live and immediate support, which is like reaching the summit and returning home safely. Now, let's talk about unrealistic timelines. On the flip side, an unrealistic timeline is like trying to climb Everest in a weekend. It might look good on paper, but it is a recipe for disaster. Some red flags for unrealistic timelines include driven by arbitrary deadlines, like we need to reach the summit by next Tuesday. Failure to account for the complexity of the project. Inadequate time allocated for critical phases like testing and training. No buffer time for unexpected issues like sudden storms. Assumption that everything will go perfectly. It never does on Everest or in an ERP implementation. I once worked with a county government that tried to implement a new financial system in just 6 months. They were driven by a hard deadline to have the system in place for the new budget cycle. The result? It was like trying to climb Everest without fully acclimating. They suffered from the equivalent of altitude sickness, rush testing, inadequate training, and a go-live that was plagued with issues. It took them another year to stabilize the system, far longer than if they had planned realistically from the start. The crucial role of change management. Now, let's talk about something that's often overlooked but is absolutely critical: change management. In our Everest analogy, change management is like preparing your body and mind for the extreme conditions you'll face on the mountain. Change management in ERP implementations involves preparing your workforce for new processes and technologies. It also includes addressing resistance to change, ensuring smooth transitions between old and new systems, and maintaining productivity during the transition. Here's why change management is so crucial in government ERP projects. Government agencies often have long-standing entrenched processes. It's like trying to change the route up Everest that's been used for decades. Public sector employees may be more resistant to change due to job security concerns. Imagine climbers who are hesitant to try new, safer equipment. There's often a complex web of stakeholders, including elected officials, career civil servants, and the public, like having to coordinate with multiple expedition teams, local guides, and government officials. Failure can have severe consequences, including loss of public trust and misuse of taxpayer funds, the equivalent of a very public, very expensive failed expedition. A robust change management plan should be integrated into your implementation timeline from day one. This means allocating time and resources for stakeholder analysis and engagement, just like identifying who needs to be on board with your new expedition plan. It includes communication planning and execution, training and skill development, just like prepping your team for the new challenges they'll face. Addressing resistance and building buy-in. You've got to convince a hesitant team that the new route is worth taking. Remember, even the most advanced climbing gear won't help you reach the summit if your team isn't prepared to use it. Vendor timelines, the siren song of quick implementations. Now let's address a common pitfall in ERP implementations, which are unrealistic vendor timelines. Many ERP vendors will tell you they can get you to the summit in record time. While this might sound appealing, it's often as dangerous as a guide promising to get you up Everest in a week. So why do vendors propose short timelines? For many reasons, but to make their solution seem more attractive and also to compete with other vendors. Because they're so focused on technical implementation, not organizational change, they're not thinking about what gear you need to get to the top of the mountain or your team's readiness. So why are these short timelines often unrealistic for government agencies? Government processes are often more complex and regulated than private sector ones. Also, public sector procurement and approval processes can be lengthy. Imagine having to get approval from a committee for every piece of equipment you use to climb Mount Everest. Data migration from legacy systems can be extremely time-consuming. Think of it as having to carefully pack and transport years' worth of expedition logs. Government agencies often require more extensive testing and security measures. And here's why you shouldn't let vendors dictate your timeline. They don't know the intricacies of your organization. They're definitely not familiar with your team's specific needs and capabilities. Additionally, they may not factor in government-specific requirements like special permits or regulations. And oftentimes, they're focused on go-live, not long-term success. Short timelines often shortchange critical activities like training and change management. Instead, I would suggest that you work with your vendor to create a realistic timeline that accounts for your agency's specific needs and constraints. It's like working with a guide to create a custom expedition plan that fits your team's capabilities and goals. Now, here are some government-specific considerations for ERP timelines. Implementing an ERP in a government setting comes with unique challenges that need to be factored into your timeline. It's like planning an Everest expedition with additional rules and requirements set by local government. Now, let's break these down. Fiscal year considerations. Many government agencies operate on a July 1st to June 30th fiscal year. This can severely impact go-live timing. You might aim for the start of a new fiscal year, like timing your summit push for the best weather window. Budget approval processes can add months to your timeline, like waiting for funding approval for your expedition. Legislative and regulatory compliance. Government ERP systems often need to comply with specific regulations. Your timeline needs to include time for ensuring and testing compliance, like additional safety checks mandated by climbing authorities. Public transparency requirements. Government projects often require public hearings or comment periods. Imagine having to hold town halls about your expedition plans. Your timeline should include time for these processes. Procurement processes. Government procurement can be lengthy and complex, like having to go through a rigorous process to select your climbing gear and support team. You should factor in the time for RFP development, vendor selection, and contract negotiation. Legacy system integration. Government agencies often have numerous legacy systems that need to be integrated or replaced. It's like having to incorporate equipment and techniques from previous expeditions. And this can significantly extend data migration and testing phases. Multiple departments and agencies. Government ERP projects often span multiple departments or agencies, like coordinating multiple climbing teams for one expedition. Your timeline needs to account for coordination and alignment across these entities. And we can't forget about election cycles. Changes in elected officials can impact project support and direction. Imagine changing expedition leaders halfway through your planning. Consider timing your project to minimize disruption from election cycles. For example, I worked with a county government implementing a new ERP system. Their timeline had to account for a 6-month procurement process, alignment with the county's fiscal year for budgeting, coordination across 15 different departments, integration with 20+ legacy systems, and public hearings and Board of Supervisors approvals. All of this extended their timeline to 24 months from project initiation to go live, which is a realistic time frame for such a complex endeavor. The importance of role clarification and project roles. Something that's often overlooked but is absolutely critical in any ERP implementation is role clarification and project roles. Think of this as assigning specific roles to each member of your Everest expedition team. In an ERP implementation, clear roles and responsibilities are crucial for several reasons. Accountability. When everyone knows their role, it's clear who's responsible for each task. Efficiency. Clear roles prevent duplication of efforts and ensure all necessary tasks are covered. Communication. Defined roles establish clear lines of communication and reporting. Risk management. Proper role assignment helps identify and mitigate risks early. Key project roles in an ERP implementation typically include an executive sponsor who will provide high-level support and remove organizational obstacles. A project manager. Think of this as the expedition leader. They oversee the day-to-day progress and coordinate all aspects of the project. Business process owners. These are your expert climbers for each specific area, like finance, HR, etc. They understand current processes and help design future ones. IT lead. This is your technical expert ensuring the ERP system integrates with existing infrastructure. Change management lead. This person prepares the organization for the changes ahead, like a trainer getting the team ready for high altitudes. Data migration specialist. They ensure all your valuable information makes it safely to the new system, just like carefully transporting crucial supplies up the mountain. Quality assurance lead. This person ensures everything meets standards, like checking all equipment before the climb. Training lead. They prepare users to work with the new system, similar to teaching climbers how to use new gear. The vendor project manager. They play a crucial role throughout all phases of the implementation, providing expert advice and answering technical questions about the product and technology. They work closely with the internal team to assist in configuring the software to fit the organization's specific requirements, ensuring that the ERP solution aligns with the agency's unique needs and processes. Why should you use a consultant for ERP implementation? You might be wondering, why can't we just handle this internally? Why do we need a consultant? Let me explain why bringing in an ERP consultant is like hiring an experienced expedition leader for your Everest journey. Expertise and experience. ERP consultants have guided many organizations through this journey. They've seen the pitfalls and they know the best routes to success. Objective perspective. An external consultant can provide an unbiased view of your processes and needs, free from internal politics and preconceptions. Best practices. Consultants bring knowledge of industry best practices, helping you not just replicate your current processes, but optimize them. Resource augmentation. Implementing an ERP is a massive undertaking. Consultants provide additional skilled resources without the need for permanent hires. Risk mitigation. With their experience, consultants can identify and mitigate risks that your team might not foresee. Vendor management. Consultants often have established relationships with ERP vendors and can help navigate contract negotiations. Change management. Experienced consultants know how to manage the human side of change, crucial for user adoption and overall project success. Knowledge transfer. A good consultant doesn't just implement and leave. For example, I once worked with a state agency that initially tried to implement their ERP system internally. 6 months in, they were behind schedule, over budget, and facing significant resistance from staff. When they brought in our consulting team, we were able to clarify roles and responsibilities, reducing confusion and improving efficiency. We introduced best practices that streamlined their processes. We developed a comprehensive change management plan that improved user buy-in. And we negotiated more favorable terms with the ERP vendor. We were able to get the project back on track and delivered the new project within the new timeline and budget. Remember, an ERP implementation is not just a technology project. It's a business transformation initiative. Just as you wouldn't climb Everest without an experienced guide, you shouldn't embark on an ERP implementation without expert guidance. At Avero Advisors, we bring this expertise to every project. We don't just implement systems, we partner with you to transform your organization, ensuring you have the right roles, the right processes, and the right support to reach your ERP summit successfully. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any additional questions on ERP implementation timelines, please be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. Also, visit us at averoadvisors.com to download our latest report on digital transformation in the public sector.